I'm Gretchen Winters. I'm the Director of Marketing with Bursch Travel, and I just wanted to welcome everybody this evening. Thank you so much on behalf of Bursch Travel, Pegasus Travel, and Rocky Mountaineer for joining us. I think you're in for a real treat. I have enjoyed Dawn's presentations in the past, and it is such a remarkable product that I know you're going to learn a lot and be excited about going on one of these Rocky Mountaineer journeys. So I'm going to turn it over to Dawn, and I just want to remind everybody that this will be recorded. So if you have problems listening to it or you have to jump off, or if you have friends or family that wanted to attend and couldn't attend, we'll have this recorded and it will be posted on the Bursch Travel website under services, under travel seminars. So it should be up and available tomorrow. So spread the word. Once you hear it, you're going to want to talk to friends and family about joining you on this wonderful adventure. So at the end, I'll kind of remind everybody how to reach out to your Bursch or Pegasus travel advisor. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat box and then we'll cover those at the end. So I'm turning it over to Dawn. Take it away, Dawn, and I'll be back with everybody at the end. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Gretchen. I really appreciate it. And yes, I just want to reiterate, do go ahead and put those questions in the chat or the Q&A. I'll be answering them at the end, but while you're thinking of them, put them in the chat, because if you're like me, I'll forget by the time it's over. So type them in while you're thinking about it. Maybe we'll cover it, maybe we won't. So how it's going to work tonight, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Rocky Mountaineer, who we are. I'll talk about our classes of service. I'll talk about our routes, both in Canada and here in the United States. And then I'm going to get into an amazing promotion that we have. So hang in there with me, okay? I'll go ahead and get started. For over 30 years, Rocky Mountaineer has been taking people from around the world on just remarkable journeys through the Canadian Rockies. And as I mentioned, now we're in America's Southwest as well. We have become known for our luxurious coaches, our fresh, flavorful food, our engaging hosts, and really just picking the amazing scenery that you see on board Rocky Mountaineer, because you really are deep in nature. You are down by the rivers, you're going over crevasses and canyons, and every single one of our routes has sites that you can only see on board Rocky Mountaineer. You can't see them by car. They're not accessible. So they're absolutely beautiful. So let's get started. Welcome aboard Rocky Mountaineer. There's three things that make Rocky Mountaineer unique. First is all-inclusive. It's all-inclusive while you're on the train. That means your meals, your snacks, your alcoholic, non-alcoholic beverages are included. So we do have world-class cuisine. Another one is the word day here. Day on board the train. You don't sleep on the train. That's one of the biggest misconceptions I get, is where do you sleep on the train? And you don't sleep on the train. We're going to arguably some of the prettiest areas of the world, America's Southwest, the Canadian Rockies. You want to see it, right? You don't want to sleep through it, and you certainly don't want to be traveling through it at night. The last thing, the third thing that makes us unique are our hosts. Our hosts are there. They're just amazing. They'll become your friends by the end. So those are the three things that make us unique. Daylight only train travel, world-class cuisine, and our engaging host. And I'll talk a little bit more about each one. As I mentioned, you're going to stay in some amazing hotels, and we do have different levels of hotels. You can do anything from moderate hotels to ultra deluxe hotels. And we do think it's really important to keep that daylight only train travel going. In fact, we only operate April through October. A lot of people think it's because of the weather, and it's a little bit because of the weather, but it's mainly to keep the integrity of that daylight only train travel going. We roll out the red carpet for you in every single way on board Rocky Mountaineer, including our culinary experience. You might be thinking, how good can train food be? And it can be amazing. We truly win award upon award upon award for our food. And as I mentioned, it is all inclusive when you're on the train. So that means your meals, your snacks, your alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages are included when you're on board Rocky Mountaineer. I mentioned our hosts, oh, they make it really a lot of fun. They get everybody involved. They do a big cheers at the beginning as we pull out of the train station, which is really unique. And yes, they're there to serve you. They're there to cater to your needs. But you know what? They're also great storytellers. They'll tell you the history of the area you're coming up to. They'll tell you the sights that you're seeing. My favorite ones are the human interest stories that they tell about people in the area. They're also great animal spotters. They actually carry walkie-talkies with them. And so if anybody on the train spots an animal, they hear it in their ear. And it's really funny because they're sitting there pouring a glass of wine, and all of a sudden they'll hear it in their ear and they'll yell out, "Bear on the right." And everybody screams and jumps up and runs and takes a picture of the bear. And that's where it becomes a fun social interaction too. We really do believe in our storytelling ability. You know what? Your hosts, they're going to become your friends. It's so funny. I feel like that as you'll learn, the train itself is only a couple days long. We put together packages before and after, but it's really funny because if you sit there and watch people when they first get on the train, everybody sits all nice and proper, and within a few hours, everybody's up talking around. The hosts really do get everybody involved, and they're your friends by the end of the 2 days. Your job while you're on board Rocky Mountaineer is honestly just to sit back, relax, enjoy the scenery, follow along your journey with a map that we provide at your seat, and of course, view the wildlife. You have to search for the wildlife, right? Because alongside this amazing scenery on your journey, you also have chances to catch glimpses of local wildlife like black bear, bald eagles, bighorn sheep, moose, mountain lions, a lot of wildlife on board Rocky Mountaineer. We actually share the lines with the freight trains. Freight trains carry feed. Feed flies off of freight trains, and especially in the spring and the fall, animals are coming, the bears are coming in and out of hibernation looking for food. We have 2 classes of service on board Rocky Mountaineer. We have gold and silver. The one thing I want you to know, both of them all inclusive when you're on the train, no matter which class of service you take. And every single rail car on board Rocky Mountaineer has its own kitchen and culinary team. That's important. Your food is not being made 8 and 10 cars over and it's cold by the time it's brought to you. No, it is prepared right there in your rail car, plated to your preference, and brought out to you. I'll start with a gold leaf. I should go back a slide. As you can see, there's a little bit of a difference physically. Gold leaf is a 2-level rail car, where silver leaf is the single-level rail car. So gold leaf, the 2-level rail car, you sit up top, and where that spiral staircase is, you have where that logo is, you have a spiral staircase, and that takes you down to the main level where you dine. Now, I mentioned the spiral staircase. If anybody has mobility issues, we do have a lift that goes up and down. Just know you would have to use it when you go down for your meals and anytime you use the washrooms, because every rail car also has 2 washrooms on board, and those are on the main level. So this is your view from your gold leaf rail car. It's amazing. It really is. I mean, it's 180-degree, unobstructed view of the Canadian Rockies. These seats are nice wide leather seats. You push a little button and a footrest comes out. You push another one and you kind of slide forward to recline. They're heated as well, which is awesome. I don't care what time of year. I've been there in July, and I love that little butt warmer that's on. It's so cozy. They're really luxurious seats. And then, as I mentioned, you dine on the main level restaurant style. So tables of 4, 2 across from each other. On Gold Leaf, you get a choice of about 5 to 6 entrees for your meals for your Gold Leaf rail service. And then my favorite part of Gold Leaf is this outdoor viewing area. So this probably fits about 20, 25 of us if we were to all stand side by side. But honestly, people just tend to come and go from this area. I've been out there, with 5 or 6 people. I've been out there 20 minutes by myself. And you might be thinking, you standing outside a train while it's going is how fast is the train going? Well, the train itself only goes about 30 to 35 miles an hour max on average. So 30 to 35 miles an hour max. We're not a speed train. We're not a bullet train through Japan. We are a nice leisurely train ride through the Canadian Rockies. So we actually joke at Rocky Mountaineer that we travel at Kodak speed. So this is a great place just to get some fresh air, breathe in that, fresh mountain air and take some amazing pictures. So Gold Leaf, we do have that service in Canada. In Canada and in the US, we have Silverleaf. I'll explain that a little more when I get to our US product. But right now, I'm just kind of going over the classes of service. Silverleaf is a single level rail car. It is still a domed car. Dome goes up about a third of the way on each side. But look at this. Look at how nice and wide those picture windows are. I mean, just imagine if those animals are right down by the train tracks. You are right there by the animals, which is really cool. And again, nice wide seats, people can turn sideways and take pictures. And here you dine at your seat. So your tray table comes down. We do the whole crystal linen china. And again, all inclusive. You get a choice of 2 entrees at breakfast and lunch, or your meals, I should say, on your Silverleaf rail car. And again, your food is prepared right there in your rail car, plated to your preference. And people always ask me about an outdoor viewing area. We have a little bit of a one on Silverleaf. This is in between the rail cars. That door that opens, we always keep the top half of that open. So a couple people on each side can fit. And again, still going 30, 35 miles an hour max on average. And it's just a great place to get some fresh air and take some amazing pictures. Okay, so those are our classes of service. I'm going to now go over our rail routes, and I'll start with Canada. Canada, we have 3 rail routes. We have 2 that go up to Jasper, 1 that goes over to Lake Louise and Banff. So our rail routes are those solid lines. That green dotted line, there's no rail that goes north and south from Jasper down to Lake Louise, Banff, and Calgary. That's where the sightseeing transfers come into play. I'll talk about that in a bit. But I'm just breaking it down for you right now, classes of service, rail routes, and then we'll get into some packages. No matter which way you go on the train, because the train goes either direction, east to west, west to east, it's the same scenery both ways. But no matter which way you go, you'll start or end in Vancouver. Now, I always, always, always recommend an extra night in Vancouver. I love this city. Truly one of my top 3 favorite cities in the world. This city has it all. I mean, it boasts snow-capped mountains and glistening ocean waters, and it has beautiful beaches. It has award-winning restaurants. It has a ton of cultural neighborhoods that you can explore by foot, by bike, by motor coach, by water taxi even. So this is an amazing city. I really recommend an extra night for your clients. Some of my favorite things to do are Stanley Park, the largest park in Vancouver. It's right in the middle of Vancouver, and it's home to the First Nation totem poles. So you'll get to see that. Down at the bottom, look at this, the Capilano Suspension Bridge. Not quite as scary as it looks, actually. I promise you that. But if you are of the faint of heart, don't worry. There is a coffee shop there that you can sit there and get a coffee, and it's a great gift shop there too. I found a lot of good souvenirs at that good shop. But probably my favorite thing to do is Granville Island. Granville Island is this like Pike's Market in Seattle on steroids. There's tons of shops, tons of restaurants. I always recommend go to Granville Island, at least for lunch. At least have lunch at Granville Island. And by the way, go to Lee's Donuts. They will change your life. If you can get in, the line is always so long at Lee's Donuts, but give it a whirl. Okay, so we've spent time in Vancouver, and now we are going on the Rocky Mountaineer. I'll talk about our routes individually. So our first route is called Rainforest to Gold Rush. This is our 3-day route to Jasper, where you're going to overnight in Whistler and Quesnel. Whistler, home of the 2010 Winter Olympics. This is a cute little ski resort in British Columbia. What I love about this is you'll get into Whistler around noon. So you'll have the rest of the day and the evening free to explore the local artisans here, the shops, the restaurants. You'll overnight in a hotel, get up, get back on the train. And by the way, I'm going to do a little side note here. We take care of all your luggage for you. Your luggage won't even be on the train with you. When you leave Vancouver, you're going to leave your luggage in your hotel. We're actually going to truck it ahead to Whistler. And this is the same on any of the routes that we do, We're going to truck it ahead. We're going to hand you your key before you get off the train. You're going to literally walk 2 steps off the train, 3 steps onto the motor coach. We're going to take you to your hotel, go straight to your room. No waiting in line to check in. You're already checked in, and no waiting 20 or 30 minutes for your bag to get there. It's going to be in your room waiting for you. It is really nice. And like I said, that is just on every single route of Rocky Mountaineer. Okay, back to the routes. It's a little side note. So you're going to overnight in Whistler, get up the next day, and you're going to head towards Quesnel. And this is where you're going to notice a big change in scenery. In fact, if you're into different sceneries, this is a great one for you because it has the most topography difference of any of our routes. You hit the mountain, or you come out of Vancouver, and it's technically rainforest. You hit the mountains of Whistler, and then when you get to Quesnel, that's where the gold rush happened in Canada. That's why it's so more desert-like and arid, like the Fraser Canyon that I just showed you. Again, overnight in Quesnel in a hotel, back on the train the next day, where you end your rail journey in Jasper. This is a shout of Mount Robson. It's the highest peak in the Canadian Rockies. So as you can tell, that's a 3-day route to Jasper. And then, of course, like I said, we have packages at the beginning and end, sightseeing at the beginning and end. So I'm just going to show you one package of each. I don't like to go over a bunch of itineraries. You can go over that with your travel advisor at Bursch or Pegasus Travel. I just like to do my recommendations. So I like this one where it has 2 nights Jasper, 2 nights Lake Louise, 2 nights Banff, and then fly out of Calgary. Okay, our 2-day route to Jasper is called Journey Through the Clouds. This is where you're going to overnight in Kamloops. Now, people always ask me, why do you overnight in places like Kamloops and Quesnel? What's there to do there? And I'll be honest, not a lot. There really isn't. But I've actually come to like Kamloops a lot. It's a town of about 100,000 people. It has live music every night in the summer in this park that's within walking distance. But if we kept going, the reason we stay at these places is because if we kept going, it would be getting dark. You would be missing the best part. You'd be missing the beauty of the Canadian Rockies, including my favorite site, Pyramid Falls. So Pyramid Falls, this is one of those sites you can only see on board Rocky Mountaineer. You cannot access it by car. It's stunning. It's stunning. I mean, just picture yourself on this beautiful rail car, maybe with a glass of wine in your hand, and you're looking up at the mountain, searching for that bald eagle, and all of a sudden this beautiful waterfall comes cascading down over the rocks and the cliffs. It's absolutely stunning, absolutely stunning. And this is one of those sites as well that our hosts are going to tell you about. They're going to say, hey, we're coming up to Pyramid Falls in about 5 or 10 minutes. It'll be on your right or your left. And then they'll tell you about Pyramid Falls. And then even though the train only goes about 30 miles an hour max, we're going to slow down to almost a dead stop as you come past Pyramid Falls, so you can get some great pictures of it. And then as well, this rail line ends in Jasper. Now, Jasper surprised me the first time I went. I thought it would be bigger than it was. It's only a town of about 4,000 people. To me, it's very natural, very rustic, kind of very untouched. It's a very unique little town. I've actually seen elk walking down the main street of Jasper. I'm not kidding. I was out for an early morning jog, and I was jogging on the sidewalks of Main Street, Jasper, and there's 3 elk walking right down the main street of Jasper. It was so cool. Here's another package. Again, I'm not going to really, I'm just going to kind of brief through these, but notice the 2 nights, once you're in the Canadian Rockies, and of course I would add an extra night in Vancouver too, but once you're in the Canadian Rockies, we do have 2-night stays, and we do this for a reason. We used to have 1-night stays, but we got a lot of feedback on it, and it made a lot of sense. you're not going to get into Jasper until somewhere between 6 and 8 p.m. If you got up and had an 8 a.m. transfer down to Lake Louise, you would not see any of Jasper. So we do have the two, and it's the same way for Lake Louise. You'd get in around 5. You want to see things, right? You're there. So we do have 2-night in every location. Also, I like the ones that end in Calgary. Well, I should say that start or end in Calgary, but that have Calgary in the name. So here's a little tip from me, because I like my sleep. You have Calgary that ends in the name. You want to stay a night in Calgary if you're going eastbound, especially. So if you're starting in Vancouver, ending in Calgary, because you will clear US Customs in Calgary before you fly home, which means you have to get there early, 3 hours in advance minimum, because that airport gets really, really crowded. If you have a morning flight, and there are morning flights because I've taken them, and you're getting there early anyway. If you're coming from Banff, that's another 2-hour drive. You'd be leaving at, like 3 a.m. So have that night in Calgary, especially if you're going eastbound. So you'll want to talk to your Bursch and Pegasus travel advisor about a package that says Calgary just at the end of the name of it. Okay, then first passage to the west. This is our historical route. So this one, again, overnights in Kamloops. And the reason it's a historical route, it goes through what we call the spiral tunnels. So the spiral tunnels are an engineering marvel to this day. Give you a little bit of background. In the late 1800s, they connected 3,200 kilometers of rail across Canada, essentially making it the country it is today, because the Canadian Rockies were such a barrier. But you know what? When they connected all that rail, this area through the Canadian Rockies, the grade was about twice as steep as it should be. So they couldn't control the speed of the train. So that made for dangerous train travel. So they brought in engineers who literally blasted through the mountains and created what they call the spiral tunnels. They're not even spiral. To me, I think that's a funny name because A, they're not spiral, and B, that sounds like a ride in Disney World to me, the spiral tunnels, but they actually look like a giant cursive L. And what they do is that the tracks go up and down at varying degrees, thus controlling the speed of the train. Like I said, it's an engineering marvel to this day. We are the only passenger train to run on this route and through the spiral tunnels. And here you're going to end your rail journey in Banff. Love Banff. You definitely want a couple nights in Banff for sure. And this picture, you know what? This is a shot right down Banff Avenue. And it depicts not just what I like about the about Banff, but about the Canadian Rockies in general. I mean, doesn't it look like you're just going to walk down the block and run smack dab into that mountain? It is like that all over the Rockies. They just surround you. They envelop you. They're just so majestic. That's really the only thing I can think of. Again, another sample package. Note my theme: 2 nights in these locations and a night in Calgary at the end. Calgary is actually a pretty cool town. It's a cowboy town. Of course, it's known for the Stampede that happens 2 weeks every July. But a lot of shops, a lot of restaurants in Calgary as well. So it's kind of a foodie town. Okay, we also have circle journeys. So a little background on the circle journeys. Almost everything I've been talking about has been going one way, say going from Vancouver over to Jasper or over to Banff and then flying out of Calgary. As you just learned, our routes are only 2 or 3 days long. I kid you not, almost every single trade show I go to, somebody comes up to me and says, "Oh my gosh, Rocky Mountaineer, best trip I've ever taken, but I wish I would have had more time on the train," or "I wish I would have gone both ways on the train. I just enjoyed it so much." Well, you can do a circle journey. And what a circle journey is starting in Vancouver, taking one route, say the first passage, the red line, over to Lake Louise and Banff, spending some time there, working your way up to Jasper, spending a couple nights there, and taking another route back. So in this scenario, we have different scenarios, but in this one, You'd be on the train for 2 days, off for 7 days, and then back on for another few days. So if you have the time, I do recommend thinking about this. I know it all comes down to time, but if you have the time, I think it's worth thinking about. So that green dotted line that I mentioned, there's no rail, as I said, that goes north and south. This is where your sightseeing transfers come in. We do this by motor coach. I'm not going to go through all of them because you'd be here all night, but I'm going to do my faves. So first, the Columbia ice fields. This is where you take this tractor looking thing out onto Athabasca Glacier. Athabasca Glacier is one of the few glaciers in the world that you can actually access by a motorized vehicle. Most of them, of course, are by cruise ships. And when you're out there, I want you to think of this. You'll be standing on a glacier that is as thick as the Eiffel Tower is tall. Think about that. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? It's as thick as the Eiffel Tower is tall. Again, not for the faint of heart. We have the Glacier Skywalk there at Athabasca Glacier. Also, there's a coffee shop or gift shop there you can stay at. The Banff Gondola. I love this. This is about an 8 to 10-minute ride up to the top of Sulphur Mountain. When you get up there, don't just take a picture, turn around and come back, because there are some amazing views up there. There's also a boardwalk that's up there, and that it actually goes about 3/4 of a mile. I was surprised how far it went. You don't have to go the whole 3/4 of a mile, but you know what? When you're out there, every 50 steps, it's a new view of the Canadian Rockies. So do go out there a little bit and do it. As I mentioned, we operate April through October. So we do fill up. We have to cram everybody in this little 6-month time frame. And the reason we do this again is to keep the integrity of the daylight only train travel going. We operate April through October, both in the United States and Canada. And speaking of the United States, I am so excited to let you know about our newest route called Rockies to the Red Rocks. I want to give you a little bit of background. I've been with Rocky Mountaineer for over 6 years now. And ever since I started, people were looking into a new route. That's how long it took to find it. I mean, well over 6 years, because we were very particular about it. It had to have the same qualities and components as our Canadian routes. So that means we had to be able to bring our own rail cars down. That means it had to have iconic cities, quaint destinations, and sites that were seen not just by rail, but by multi-day, daylight only train travel. And I'm telling you, we knocked it out of the park with this one. Rockies to the Red Rocks. It travels from Denver, Colorado to Moab, Utah, overnighting in Glenwood Springs. And again, our train passes through some really remote and sparsely populated landscapes, many of which are not accessible by car. And it just makes for remarkable viewing from the train with, that it's quite exclusive. Addition to this, we follow the Colorado River about 60% of the time. So even if you have been out to the Southwest, trust me, you have not seen it this way. We brought our Silverleaf rail cars down. Just a reminder, our Silverleaf rail cars are the single level rail cars where you dine at your seat. Again, it is all inclusive. And again, the rail cars have their own kitchen and culinary team. Now, the reason we had to bring our Silverleaf rail cars down, some of the tunnels that we go through in the US, including the Moffat Tunnel, are too small for our 2-level gold leaf rail cars by about 6 to 8 inches. So, but you know what? I actually think these are the perfect rail car for this scenery. I really do. These nice, wide, huge picture windows, and you're kind of down closer to nature. And we follow the Colorado River for 60% of the time. So you're right down there. It's really a great, I think it's the perfect rail car for this route. But for those of you that do want a little bit of an upgrade, we have what's called Silverleaf Plus. This is available only in the United States. And what this does, it gives you access to 2 lounge cars. So you will still ride and dine in your Silverleaf rail car, but it gives you access to two lounge cars. You'll have a mixologist on board. One of them is a little more modern. One of them is a little more traditional and has a player piano. We'll have some additional appetizers, canapes, a few more choices of alcohol, maybe some upgraded liquors, some more craft beers to choose from. So that's certainly an option for you as well. So the route itself, say we're going to start in Denver. The train does go both ways. I just have to pick a way to go. So we're starting in Denver today. And I love Denver. If you haven't been out there, I do recommend spending an extra day out there. I have 2 nephews that live there, so I know it pretty well. What I love about it, it is a city with culture and diversity, but it gives a nod to the Old West era as well. Of course, like any major city, plenty of things to do there. There's museums, aquariums, zoos, botanical gardens, shopping, restaurants. Some of my favorites are the Denver Art Museum, that's known as the Dam. And it has a lot of Native American art, but it also has like really contemporary art as well. Larimer Square is one of the oldest parts of Denver. It has all Victorian era buildings. Denver's actually been named the 4th most walkable city in the world. And I believe it because there's a trolley that goes right down 16th Street. It's called 16th Street Trolley. And it stops at every single block. So it's very, very walkable. Of course, if you're a beer drinker, you know that Denver is affectionately known as the Napa Valley of craft beer. If you're interested in sampling some of those, I recommend going to the Lodo District. That is short for Lower Downtown. And that's home to some of the most popular local breweries. And you can stroll around there on your own. There's also guided tours if you want as well. Okay, so you've experienced Denver. Now we're going to get on the train. This is a picture I actually took right from the train. So you can see, like I said, you're really down close in nature. You're right there with your Silverleaf rail car. Yet we go through a lot of the canyons. My favorite site this day between Denver and Glenwood Springs is Gore Canyon. Gore Canyon is one of those sites. Again, you can only see on board Rocky Mountaineer. Well, actually, you can see it 2 ways. You can see it on board Rocky Mountaineer, or if you're a class 5 whitewater rafter. I'm pretty adventurous. I'm not class 5 adventurous. I much preferred to watch those rafters from the comfort of my nice dry seat with a glass of wine in my hand versus battling the rapids. We saw some people battling the rapids. And then you'll overnight in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. Glenwood Springs, Colorado is a little resort town known for its hot springs. And it's just a cute little, to me, it has kind of a street fair feel to it. There's, like I said, there's shops and restaurants, but I've seen musicians just pop up and start playing. So it's really a cute little town. And now this next day between Glenwood Springs and Moab, this is why I can't compare the Canadian Rockies to this route, because this is where it gets amazing. You go through the Grand Valley. The Grand Valley has become known for its vineyards in about the last decade or so. It's no Napa, but hey, it might be in the next 10 years. You never know. Here you're going over past the Book Cliffs. So the Book Cliffs are the longest continuous escarpment in the world. They range over 250 miles across Utah and Colorado. And they're named because look at it. Doesn't it look like it's books stacked on a shelf? It does, doesn't it? So that's why we call it, or we don't call it, they call it the Book Cliffs. And as you get closer to Moab, you're really you're gonna go through Ruby Canyon. This is my favorite site on this day, Ruby Canyon. I mean, just look at that. Look at how massive these formations that the Colorado River has formed. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And these beautiful crimson colored red rocks. You'll end your rail journey here in Moab, Utah. Moab is a small town, but it provides kind of the jumping off points for a lot of these spectacular scenic parks in the US, and including Utah's Mighty Five. Most notably our Arches National Park. That's one of the most famous ones, Canyonlands National Park and Dead Horse Point State Park. So Moab is a tourist town, even though it is only about 4,000 people. I do want to talk a little bit about the national parks because they're just too amazing not to. Arches National Park, is very close to this, and it's home to over 2,000 named arches. You can visit the park's highlights. This is the windows. This is the windows arch. This one is called the Double O arch. I'm not going to go through all 2,000, I promise you. And this one is called the Delicate Arch, and they're just so unique and so different. Also, nearby, Dead Horse Point State Park. Dead Horse Point State Park is absolutely beautiful. And if I have any movie aficionados, normally if I do this in person, I ask if anybody has any guesses, but I will tell you, Thelma and Louise. This was kind of the last scene driving, if you know what I mean. It's filmed at Dead Horse Point State Park. And Canyonlands National Park is gorgeous as well. Now, as pretty as these pictures are, and look at this is gorgeous. I promise you, you cannot wrap your brain around this, because this goes on for miles and miles and miles. It's like seeing a picture of the Grand Canyon and saying, oh, that's pretty. And then you're like, you get out there and you're like, whoa, that's unbelievable. Okay, so we do have a couple, some packages I want to go over really quickly. We have a classic package that just includes, Denver, Glenwood Springs, and Moab. And people always ask me, how do you get in and out of Moab? There is an airport there with one gate. I'm not kidding. It has one gate. United and Delta fly into it. So you can do that. And actually, like a one-way flight, I just checked, and a one-way flight from Moab to Denver was only like $114. So it wasn't bad. But we do have motor coach transfers that go up to Salt Lake City. It's a 4.5-hour drive. And we have transfers that go to Vegas. Now, we do not have a transfer that goes straight through to Vegas on motor coach. That would be about 7.5 or 8 hours. That's way too long for anybody. So what we do is we have one motor coach transfer, and this is more like a guided vacation where you have a travel director and guide, where you'll overnight in Bryce. So you'll break it up. You'll overnight in Bryce, and you'll also stop during that time. You're going to stop and you're going to visit Capitol Reef National Park. Capitol Reef is one of the lesser known of the Mighty Five national parks, but it is not to be missed. You stop in Bryce, of course, and you'll have time in these locations. We're not just going to drive through them. You're going to have time to get out and look at them. Absolutely. So in Bryce, everything goes down, and you'll go to Zion, where everything goes up. So Bryce goes down and Zion goes up. So you'll see those national parks. You'll stop at those national parks on this one, and then you'll end in Vegas. Now, if you can't wait 2 days to get to Vegas, you want to get there right away. We can get you there in 2 hours and 20 minutes with a flight. It's called Flight Seeing. And this is where you take a small plane with a pilot guide. So the pilot will be your guide, and you actually fly over 4 of the Mighty Five national parks. So very cool. Oh, you fly over at 2,000 feet, by the way. Okay, promotions. This is what you guys all been waiting for. I promised you a good one, and I have an amazing one. Perfect timing on this. On our US product, you can save $500 per couple if you want to go this year. $500 per couple. That's a lot. This offer does end April 11th. It's not going to be extended. This is honestly the best offer I have seen. I'm not kidding. It is the best offer I have seen on this. So it ends April 11th. Please, please, please call your Bursch Travel, your Pegasus travel advisor before then. Don't call them on April 12th, because they're going to call me and I'm going to have to say no. So call before April 11th. You need to deposit by then. And honestly, no matter where you go, work with your Bursch and Pegasus travel advisors. Oh my gosh. I don't know how long, Gretchen, we've been working together, but it's been a long time, and I just love them. They know what they're doing. I've traveled with many of them. They're just so honest. They're going to tell you where you want to spend the money, and they're going to tell you where you want to save the money. So please work with them. Again, put any questions in there. I think I have one more. I do have a question. Can you do 2 nights in Glenwood Springs? And, Debbie, unfortunately, you cannot. That's the one time in between the trains where you cannot add extra nights. You can add nights before the train and after the train, but you can't add them in between. It would mess up all our inventory. It would just be an operational nightmare for us. So you cannot add an extra night in Glenwood, but before, after, absolutely. So thank you for that question. Any other questions that you may have? And Gretchen, while people are possibly thinking of them, do you want to hop on and say how they can get a hold of you all?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Dawn. Oh my gosh, every time I see this, I got to get on one of these. And now I was thinking the Canadian, but the US one is
Oh,
spectacular as
it
well. I guess I
is.
got to do both. That's all there is
Mhm.
to it, right?
It
But
is. It is. And you know what? Before you get started, I do have another great question that I wanted to address. Somebody asked, can you go round trip on the US route? And absolutely, absolutely. We have a package. It's called the Denver Return. And that's where you start in Denver. You'll go to Moab. I think you spend 3 nights in Moab. Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure you spend 3 nights in Moab and then you get back and go back to Denver. So that's been very popular. So great question. So, okay. I wanted to get that before you got started on your spiel.
no, that's great. Jump in whenever. I just wanted to thank everybody once again. Appreciate your time this evening, and wanted to just kind of review a little bit about the best way to reach out to your Bursch Travel or Pegasus Travel advisor. What we're starting to do now, because travel is picked up and everybody's anxious to start traveling again, which is so exciting. But we want to make sure that we're providing the very best service to our clients. So we're, for the most part, setting up appointments. That way we know we have the time to spend with you and go through the details and give you the best service. So the best way is to reach out to your Bursch Travel advisor. If you have their email, send them an email and just say you're interested. You want to set up a time to talk about getting one of these Rocky Mountaineer packages booked and take advantage of that fantastic offer. So you can send them an email directly. If you don't have their email, you can go to burschtravel.com under locations. You'll see all of our office locations there with the local phone number. You can reach out to them by phone. Or while you're on that website, there is also a contact us form that you can complete and submit. And if it's a specific advisor you work with, you can just pop their name in on that form. And we have a department that handles all of these requests, and they'll get it off to your advisor right away. And then they'll reach out to you to set up a time to make an appointment to pop in and get questions answered and get your Rocky Mountaineer booked. So if you don't work with any of the Bursch Travel advisors, again, there's the list there of all of our locations. So whichever one is closest, you can give them a call, send that form. It's best to probably do it that way, because like I say, all of the offices are very busy. It's getting a little bit better now that we're kind of out of that winter craziness. But like I said, business is picked up quite a bit. Everybody wants to travel. So we want to make sure we're providing the best service, and the best way to do that is to get those appointments set up. So that's the way to reach out. And again, thank you for your time tonight. I think we're all excited. I mean, who wouldn't be? It's just, the thought of summer and doing a wonderful trip like this is just keeps us going, right? When we look out, I'm in Minnesota looking at the snow, as many of you are. We're looking forward to a fun summer and a great travel experience. So thank you, Dawn. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody's time tonight, and have a great rest of your evening. And this was recorded, so I will go ahead and Gretchen, I'll send that to you tomorrow, and you can send it out to everybody who maybe wants to have their friends and family look at it.
Absolutely. And we'll get it posted on the website. So that's perfect.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks everybody. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Dawn. Good night.
Bye-bye.